If you've ever struggled to define and understand your target audience, you know the challenge. You're trying to figure out, well, what is the audience that's really going to be interested in what's going on? And as you start going through what your possible audience is, you can very quickly kind of go crazy. Well, the demographics. Well, who is really going to be coming in? And what sort of things are going to be doing? And what sort of things are going to be going on? And you start thinking of all these things like demographics and background and culture and race and focus and interests. And if you're swirling through all this stuff, you start thinking, what really can I talk about that's going to interest these people? How do I figure it out? You ever face that challenge? If you ever have, you know the confusion I felt. I was trying to put together a speech. I kept thinking, okay, there's demographics and geographics and culture and bias and this and that and all these different things that are supposed to go into a target audience, and I don't know what the heck to do with it. I don't know, where do I begin? What do I start at? And it's just a question that went round and round and round. I couldn't even get my speech started because I didn't know who I was really going to be talking to, what I was supposed to be talking about. Well, fortunately, I have a friend. His name is Bob. He's a tall guy, blonde hair, nice guy, professional speaker, and I bump into him every now and then. Don't really plan to meet him, I just kind of bump into him. You know something like that? You just kind of bump into them? Yeah, that's it, exactly. I just bumped into him. So one day I'm there, and I bump into him at Starbucks. It's my place. You ever got somebody you bump into strange places? For me, it's Starbucks. I'm in Starbucks, and bump into, there's Bob. So we start talking about speaking and asking what sort of things he's been doing in speaking. And after a while, this subject of audience comes up, and I say, Bob, I got a real problem here. I can't figure out what my target audience is for the speech. I just haven't really got a clear sense of them. I said, Tim, well, have you thought about the 3 whats of your audience? I said, what? Yeah, Tim, exactly. No, Bob, I mean, what are you talking about? What do you mean the 3 what? And Bob went on to explain a very simple system you can use to identify your target audience. And I had my questions about it. I wasn't quite certain whether it was going to work for me, but I started doing it and using it. And it really did help quickly zero in on that audience. And I went ahead, I gave the speech, and it went well. And since then, I've started using this system, and it really helps figure out what's going on. It's very simple, but very powerful. Because it gets at the 3 things that you really need to consider when you're targeting your audience. Once you cover these 3 things, you'll be more confident, more certain of your audience, more certain when you go out on stage of that sense of, I know what I'm doing here. You'll be able to quickly go through that problem of, okay, which audiences, how should I focus, what should I be doing? That'll take care of itself. You start thinking through the 3 whats. And as you do that and you start following this process, you discover a lot of the pressure of speaking gets off you. You spend a lot more time being in the world, living, existing, just enjoying the world, which is where you find your ideas about speaking in the first place. The world around you and all the things happening around you. So today you're going to find out about this system of going through the 3 whats. It starts with a very basic information. But from there, it goes a little bit deeper. It asks the next question. And the 3 whats really has to do with following your audience's mind. Because your audience will naturally go through 3 different phases in your speech. They'll begin with the starting phase, and then another phase, and another phase. And if you don't address those issues all the way through and get the right target on your audience as you're going through your speech, it kind of falls apart. And you'll know because the audience's eyes glass over, they start pulling out their PDAs, start pulling out their iPhones, start texting people, calling people. It's a disaster. But once you understand these 3 whats, you successfully go through each of the 3 stages, you get the audience deeper and deeper involved in your speech, which is what you want to do. So, very beginning, take a look through and start working through these 3 whats and start developing your target audience. the very first what is pretty simple. Pretty simple, pretty basic. But make sure you don't overlook it, because it's what really determines everything that comes out of your speech, everything where your speech is going. It has to do with your mindset, the way you're approaching your speech. It starts with you. The speech comes from you. It has to start with you. So before you're concerned about, targeting the audience and demographics and these things, you have to start with this very basic what. Because that's what's going to first go through your audience mind. Very first thing. Once they get past that, they can start thinking on deeper levels, but the very first thing will be that first what. Once you start addressing that, once you start getting through that, then your speech can go somewhere. And the first what is simply what? What? Your audience, when they're sitting down and hearing your speech, the first thing it says, what? What have you got for me? What are you talking about? What is this? It's when your audience is the most open. They know nothing about what you're going to be talking about. So everything you tell them tells a little bit about what it is. So right from the very beginning of your speech, you have to make sure you address that what. And make it really clear what the speech is and what it is definitely not. So you understand what's going on. Because your audience right now is kind of open. They haven't yet made up their mind one way or the other. They may have some ideas what they think it might be about, but they really don't know it until they start listening. And presuming if anybody's going to sit down and listen to your talk or your speech or your seminar or whatever it is, they're interested in it. At least they're open to being interested in it. So the real question is, what is it? What is it? Once you address that question, what is it? Then they get it. That means you have to be clear. A lot of speakers make a mistake and they're talking about what is it, it's unclear. And so as the audience starts listening through this thing, they start thinking, well, wait a minute, they said this, but didn't they say something else that was the opposite or something different? Did they really mean that? Or they mean something else? Aren't they just kind of contradicting themselves here? And all sorts of confusions can happen in your audience's mind. So you want to make things clear. If you think there's a problem or an issue this audience might have and understand what you're talking about, pull that out at the very beginning. Say, you might be thinking, gee, why is this important? What's this all about? And then explain why it's important and what it's all about. If you can really get your audience to understand what you're talking about, then they open up for some of the different levels that we'll talk about in a little bit. But it begins with that basic what. What is it? What do you have? What's in front of me? What are you talking about? And if your audience walks out of your speech thinking, I don't know what that was all about, you're not going to be able to convince them, you're not going to be able to target them, you're not be able to do anything with them. But if your audience walks through, at least says, well, at least I know what that was. I know what they're talking about. Whether or not they agree, at least you got some communication across. Because the most important mind involved in your speech is not your mind, it's your audience's mind. And the most important thing to keep in mind is what's going through your audience's mind. So you may want to do your speech in front of different people and just ask them at the end and say, what do you think that speech was about? What do you think was there? And they start saying, well, I think it was this, or I think it was that. You say, no, it wasn't supposed to be about that. Well, then you got to go back and redo your speech. Because the what is it, what are you talking about is very important, that first level. Now once that's clear, and you go through that first level of what it is, this is what I'm talking about, this is what's going on, then you can go a little bit deeper. Then you go a little bit deeper than that. And as you start to understand, okay, this is what it is, and your audience gets, okay, this is what it is, there's another question that's going to come up in their mind. And this other question is going to take them a little bit deeper in the subject, a little bit further into the subject. And once they start doing that, then you start really to hook them and to be able to target them and their interests. Hopefully, hopefully, in your speech, you've at least identified what you're talking about. And your audience is now clear on that. Your audience came to your speech not knowing really much what's going on, and all of a sudden, by the course of your speech, as it's going through, they're saying, okay, now I know what you're talking about. I understand that. I get that. And you've done your due diligence, you've gone through, you've made sure you had some sort of focus group and made sure that your message is getting across. This is what I'm talking about. They understand it. Then there's another question that comes up. It's a natural question. Once you've got the what answered, it's a natural question that comes up. Now, many speakers don't think about that question, so they got a problem. They say, well, this is what it is. This is what it is. They keep pounding that, but the audience says, yeah, but what about that other question? What about the other questions? It's like, so what? So what? That's the next thing your audience thinks. They think, okay, all right. Okay, Tim, I get it. Fine. You're talking about this. I understand what it is. You explained it nicely. Fantastic. It's all this sort of thing. This is the way it works. Great. I got it. I know what it is. So what? So what? Why should I care about that? Why does that matter to me? And once the audience starts thinking, so what, you got to make sure you've got the right audience. That's where the targeting of your audience is so important. Determining you've got the right audience. Okay, well, this is why you really should care about that. So this is really the part where you start selling them. Now, make sure you don't sell something before you actually get into what it is. I mean, you have to understand what it is before you go into why you should want it. Once you start selling people on it and say, okay, so what? Well, here's why. Just remember this. Make sure you sell them on the benefits and not all the details. The details are great. As a speaker, you're probably interested in, here are all the details of this thing and how all this stuff fleshes out. It doesn't matter. Sure, they get the what, but you can't just keep on saying the what. There's got to be that answer to the so what. Got to be an answer to the so what. So people think, okay, I'm getting all the details here. Now, why should I care about it? So what? Big deal, whatever. Who cares? And the answer to that, hopefully, is you should care. You, the audience, should care about what I'm talking about. And here's why. Here's some of the things you're going to get out of this. Here's some of the benefits you're going to get out of it. Once you understand what I'm talking about, you start doing this, you start following this, you start working in this, here's all the benefits you're going to get. There's an old sales expression you may have heard of. It's a bit of a cliche, but an important sales expression. It's a cliche because it's used so often, it's so important, and that is, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. Just a fancy way of saying, instead of focusing on the meat of the matter you're talking about, sell the smell, the taste, the way it looks, the way it feels. That's what people really want. Sure, you have to understand what it is. But it's not about the features, it's about the benefits. It's about the things that that person now can do once they understand what's going on. So you have to understand so what. It also means you have to understand what your audience cares about as benefits. And that's where targeting really comes in handy. You can figure it out. For this audience, okay, so what? Okay, here's what's going on. Just imagine that kind of conversation going on with your audience. You start saying, well, here's something. And your audience says, so what? Why should I care? Well, here's why you in particular should care. And target the audience. Here's why this particular audience should care. It's why it matters to you, why you're going to get better, why this is going to help you. It's going to help you develop in some way. Get that across, what those benefits are. So once the audience buys into the benefits, it's like, okay, yeah, great. Got the benefits. I know what it is. I know why it's so important. Okay, yeah. Answer that question, so what, in your audience's mind. Once you do that, you're ready for the third step. The third step is going to take everything over the edge and make sure your speech, your ideas, your thoughts really sink in and start changing and making that audience do things in a different way. You've almost got it. You've almost got your audience. They now understand what you're talking about. It's clear. They've got no questions. They understand what you're talking about, the process you're talking about, the steps you're talking about, how your speech, how your ideas, how your thoughts are really, this is how they work. They get that. They understand that. And you've answered the question, so what? They thought, hey, so what? Oh, benefits. Here are all the benefits you're going to get. Here's all the things that are really going to start happening. This is all the great thing that's going to go on. And you might just want to stop there and say, hey, you know, I got the what it is. I got the answer, so what? I'm good, right? That's fine. That's all you need. Now, one more thing you really got to do. And that is answer that question of, now what? Now what? See, many speakers, they get into situations like, okay, what is it? Okay, here's why you should care about it. But they don't really close the deal because they don't talk about what should be done now. And many speakers just kind of make it so huge. Okay, here's the 35,000 steps you need to start taking. Here's the 37 steps to happiness. Here's the 50 steps on the way to financial success. You know, I start thinking, I don't want to do any 37 steps. I'd rather be unhappy than go through these 37 steps because I know that will make me unhappy. I'm fine in my financial condition here if it's going to take me all those steps to try to get out of it. So when you answer, now what? It better be something the audience can do right then. You got them hooked to the point of I know what it is. I can answer the question, so what? I know why I should care about it. Then you've really got to make it clear, okay, here's all you got to do. Just a simple step and you're on your way. Now, the temptation of most speakers is just to let it rip at that point. Hey, you bought into it? You see the benefits? Let me tell you all of this stuff. The audience quickly says, hey, too much. It's like when you're trying to sip water from a fire hose, going full blast. Doesn't work. Too much, too much. Slow it down. Just slow it down. One step. And if you're going through and developing your speech, just ask, what's the one next step this audience has to take? What's the one next step this audience has to take to get to that new level? What do they need to do? That's what you need to talk about. And making it really clear. Now, you can mention some other steps. Great, fantastic. You know, here's some other steps, and there's 4 steps, or 5 steps, or 3 steps, whatever it is. But if you really want to get them into the thinking of, now what? Now what do I do? It doesn't mean now what I do the rest of my life. It doesn't mean now what do I do to make all this great process happen for the next 10, 15 years. It means now what do I do? Now what one thing do I do now that I understand what you're talking about and I agree that there are benefits? One next step. One more thing. That next step better be simple. If your next step is, and then what you need to do is get onto a rocket ship and blast yourself up in outer space and live out there for a while and get a spacesuit on and go on moonwalks. We aren't going to do that. Too complex, too dangerous. You want one simple, easy next step to take. They can just take it like that. So if all they do is take that one next step, then they're there. Then they got it. And once you put all this together, you've got them really focused in and targeted in. But it's that third step. It's that now what? Addressing the now what in your speech that's really going to put it over the top. Really going to make sure that people take action what you're talking about. It's a challenge to find the right target audience. and finding that target audience can be a big deal. But once you understand the 3 whats, you got a better idea of how you're going to be starting finding that target audience. And it begins with what? What are you talking about? Really drill it down. Figure out exactly what you're talking about, what you're not talking about. Make sure that your audience understands what you're talking about. Pick some people who are in that type of audience you're targeting, in that audience you want to affect. Start talking to them and ask them afterwards, what do you think that was about? So they understand what. Quite often there are 2 different speeches. There's a speech that you give on stage and this is a speech you have in your head that they're going to get. And the real speech is the speech in the audience's mind. And if the speech in the audience's mind doesn't match what you thought you did on stage, you got a problem. Because the speech lives on in your audience's mind. And if they don't understand what, then that's an issue. So just make sure you answer that question, what? What is it you're talking about? What is it? How does it all fit together? Just, what is it? Once you get past that question of what, and your audience starts thinking, yeah, so what? So what? Why should I care about this idea you have, about this thing you're presenting for me, this idea, this concept, this service? Why does it matter to me? Start answering that question for your audience. Start answering that so what question for your audience by bringing in benefits. It's tempting to list a lot of the features and the things you're going to be doing. It doesn't matter. All the audience cares about, what am I going to get? When I get through all this, what am I going to get out of it? That's the benefits. Begin with the benefits. Get those benefits. Listen, here's all the things you're going to get. Smarter, faster, stronger, better, easier, simpler, richer, nicer. Whatever it is, whatever those benefits are, the benefits you think are going to most be of interest to the audience you're speaking to, start listing out those benefits. So once you start listing out the benefits, then the audience will start thinking, oh, okay, I'm really going to get something out of this. This experience is really going to give me something here. I'm really going to get something here. Maybe I'll take a chance. Maybe I'll do something with it. Once you get them to that stage, you got to answer that third question of, now what? Now what? You got your audience. They know what it is. They understand the benefits. They really like to do it. They really like to take your service. They really like to take your product. They really like to do something. They want to help you out. Make it easy for them. Make it easy for them. Give them a next step. This is the next thing you need to do to go down that path that's going to take you to financial freedom, going to take you to a better life, going to take you to whatever benefits you've listed. This is the next thing to do. And when you list that next step, keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it easy to understand, because if it gets too complex, people aren't going to do it. They'll say, forget it, it's too complex. But if it's a simple thing to do, they'll say, oh, well, I can do that. I can do 3 whats. Sure, I have no problem about that. Keep it simple. Simple sells. Once you start following the 3 whats of what, so what, and now what, once you start thinking about those questions in every speech you give, you start to develop a whole new sense of what's going on. A whole new certainty. If you've been nervous about how do you target your audience, how do you make sure your speech is effective, you won't be, because you know your speech is effective. When you get on stage, you've got a pre-tested, ready-to-go speech. The answer is what, so what, and now what. Your audience knows what to do and where to go. You make that quick connection with your audience. You follow this process. What, so what, now what. And then pressure comes off your speech. You have more time to experience life and come up with new speeches. So, when you're out there trying to figure out who's the audience for your speech and how are we going to create the speech that matches best that audience, just remember the 3 whats.